All right, thank you for staying with us. So we have with us on the show Mr. Francis EMELE. Francis is a political analyst. Yes, he is known for his incisive commentary and a deep understanding of the Nigerian political space. So let us welcome Mr. Francis EMELE to the show. Mr. Francis, thank you so much for making time to be with us this morning. Good morning.
You once again.
Yes, so much for
Thank you
being
for the
here, sir.
opportunity to help. Thank you very much.
Okay, so sir, our
Can you hear me?
conversation today revolves around how we can strengthen our electoral system and crucially rebuild the faith of Nigerians in the institutions designed to protect our votes. And he's talking about INEC. We'll be exploring everything from technological, advancement to legislative changes and the fundamental question of how INEC can truly earn to sustain public trust. Now let's dive in. To start with, let us get your standpoint. What were the most crucial or critical lessons you learned from the last elections that necessitate immediate reforms?
Okay. Hope you can hear me. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you, sir.
Hello. Okay. I think where we should begin from is regaining Nigerian people's trust. As it is now, INEC is basically likened to the Nigerian police. Although we are shouting, "Police is your friend," it's just a mere cliche. We know that Nigerians in the street do not consider police as their friend. INEC has become one of the greatest enemies of Nigeria, because the trust is completely lost, especially after it cannot be rebuilt. But there are areas that INEC need to begin with, especially trust, rebuilding their trust by making sure that election is transmitted accordingly. However, INEC set the targets. However, whatever point they made before the election, let them just make sure Nigerians, at least the generality of Nigeria or majority of Nigeria, see them as truly representing what they say or having done what they said before election. Last year election or last general election, we all know that the hope was high. Tension was high. Everybody, many people wanted to vote. There were a lot of Nigerians who never voted before, simply because they believed that INEC promised to transmit the election through electronics, which an average 21st century Nigerian believe is the most authentic. INEC as well believed it, and INEC failed. So, of course, we know we are going to have terrible apathy if INEC did not rise up to reassure the populace that they are going to go back to what they promised prior to the last general election. So, where we are going to start is from reassuring Nigeria.
Because I think they have assured us before. So, do we hope on their reassurance as Nigerians? But I know you're talking from the view of INEC. So, do you think it was a question of assurance? Is there another thing they have to do? Because for me, I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's an issue. There's an issue with the assurance. They have been assuring us. What do they do next? Practical steps.
Okay. I think the practical step would have been to have demonstrated that whatever is error, whatever they claimed to be error during the last general election has been corrected, but they have not done so. We saw the election in Edo. So there's still going to be an election before the general election. For them to apply what they told us they would apply, what they told us they would do, for people to see it as it has been applied, not they tell us they did it, for us to see it. There's no how you can deceive everybody. In fact, you can't even deceive majority. For people to have seen it. So why I use assure, as I said in my first comment, is because at the end of the day, whatever they are going to do, whatever strategy they are going to employ, whatever thing they are going to do, still boils back, can still be summarized to that point of assurance, in the single point of we are now sure that they are going to do what they promised. How are they going to achieve it? There are many ways. I can't say I don't know. There should be an acceptance from INEC that the error was made. Of course, they partially accepted it, but for the fact that they accepted the error and did not, and still announced the result, especially in the midnight, is what killed the passion of Nigerian people towards the election. And you know, the average Nigeria you see on the road now is a working electoral party. Many people are not going to vote if things remain exactly the way they are going to be. There's supposed to be a massive, and INEC is supposed to collaborate with other bodies like a National Heritage Agency to embark on a massive enlightenment and acceptance too that they fought during the last election. That's the only way you can reduce people's confidence, people's willingness to vote. And also, INEC is supposed to start demonstrating that they have changed from the elections that will come before election, before general election. Of course, we still have some state elections that will come before the general election, like Anambra. So INEC is supposed to demonstrate it in such a way that people are convinced, not through propaganda, a true action and true result.
Elections before, after the 2023 elections, some states have conducted elections. And have you seen any change? Have you seen any progress with INEC compared to the last elections, that's the last presidential elections that was held in 2023?
Not at all. In fact, I think INEC has been silent within this time. Even our legislature has not done any real work to convince people that there is ongoing reform. Of course, the reform is not, we're not looking for ideas. They're already there, they're already tabled. The legislators are not doing anything about it. INEC is waiting for 2026 before they will start coming up. We are not hearing anything about INEC. It's as if the political class put that thing under their table, or under their feet, and waiting for the time they will rush it. INEC is not doing anything. There is no education, there is no enlightenment, there is no apology, there is no remorse, there is nothing done in that regard. That's why I say in Nigeria you see on the road is a walking dose of electoral apathy. Many people don't want to vote. Almost I will not vote again. But women are human. When they are offended, they can say something. But when they feel that there has been a change, object of the offense, they can reverse. But INEC has not done anything. We saw in Edo what happened, and we don't know what is going to happen in Anambra. And I think on those states, one or two states will still have an election before the general election. INEC has not done anything to convince Nigeria. INEC is basically behaving like Nigerian police. Nothing has done. We've not seen it. If there is one, then let me see.
Unfortunately, it's a reality. So on this, is there any way we can work independently, to enlighten Nigerians? When I say independent, I'm talking about political parties, those that will want to contest for the 2027 elections. Because it's looking like if you leave it in the hands of INEC, nothing will be done. So what are those measures that you can, one can put in place if you are, say, if you want to advise political parties now, what are those measures they can put in place? But for me, there are some lapses I saw with some political parties, from maybe particularly the Labour Party. That was where I really took my notes. Some of their polling unit officers, that were on ground, they didn't have as much work, what do I call them now, manpower, registered manpower. Maybe they had influencers, they had people campaigning, clamoring for them on social media, but at the end of the day, it's not a social media affair. So organized official manpower, that is, for me, if you ask me, that is one thing I would recommend to political parties out there. But on your own part, what do you think that political parties can do independently to ensure that people are carried along, people are encouraged to vote in 2027? Because at this point, like you said, if we leave it for INEC, everything will still turn back the way it went 2027.
Okay, in a place where what we have now is a dying opposition. A lot should have been done, pressure should have been mounted. If it is to vote, a political party can easily or can still try to, like Labour Party or some other political party, PDP and the rest, can still try and have people to come out. Of course, people will vote. It's a number that we are talking about. And you know that the less people vote, the more the potential for rigging evolves. So political parties should rise up and tell people to vote. But there should be an object of conviction. What are you going to tell them? Yes, you made us to vote last time. I know what Joe Biden did. Former workers were not there. People rose up from themselves and represented Labour Party without necessarily being paid or assigned by anybody. It can still happen. But what's the conviction? The conviction last time was because INEC went everywhere making promises. We saw what happened in Chatham House. INEC was there, promised the whole world that they are going to engage in electronic transmission of election results, which was mimicked. It was just a mimicry of it, but they refused to use it. Even from my own polling unit, I know that I checked online and I saw a result exactly. But INEC they abandoned it and used the one that people rewrote. So the best the political parties will do is to convince their people to vote. But let's even look at Nigerian current situation. What particular political party are we really talking about? Is it Showore? I have less than 1 million votes. Or is it PDP that is in shambles? Is it Labour Party that is also in shambles? I think the only potent people you can really convince, you can call on, though not structured, is the obedient movement. How are you going to convince them? Because what they want to see is results. The obedient movement are willing any day, any time to vote, and also APC people. But at a point where even convincing people to come and vote is not enough. It's to making them to believe that their result counts is enough. And is INEC ready to toe that line? No. It's not even being discussed in the National Assembly. INEC is not even putting ups there to explain to people or to carry people along until when it is 2026. Then they'll come with the same. I believe they will still come with the same because they've not made any effort to show us that things have changed. Of course, we know it's through act of legislation that the real change will occur. So the political party will definitely convince their people to vote. That will happen. But after voting, what happens? The conviction, will it be potent enough? Will it be effective enough if the people that count the votes that matters most are not doing anything about it?
On that, I would say that is why it's important to have registered manpower, because there's an extent that volunteers can go. You understand? Even with the whole process of transmission, there is a place they will not be allowed to go to. They cannot follow, the offices, even to the, do I call it the local government, where they would go and do all the whole collation. So that is why it's important to have registered manpower. Volunteers will do great, but there is an extent they can go. And I don't know if you're aware of a bill that is currently being debated in the National Assembly to unbundle INEC, creating a separate body for political party registration and regulation, and potentially an electoral offense commission. Are you aware of that?
I'm very much aware about the new bill, including independent candidacy. It's still there. Last time we thought it was made compulsory. It was just after election that we were told that it was no more compulsory. INEC structural reform, the manner in which INEC is formed. So let me talk about two. INEC structural reform. It is proposing to transfer REC appointment powers from presidency to INEC. Do I see weakness in that one too? Unless INEC funding, the manner in which INEC is funded, the manner in which INEC is funded changes. The source of INEC's fund is changed, it's restructured. There is no big deal. Even if it's INEC is the one that will have fund. The presidency, having pocketed INEC as we stand now, can still make INEC to appoint who he wants. It will just be ceremonial appointment from INEC. That's the case. Then electoral transmission of report, electronic transmission of report is the most potent instrument or the most potent part of the act, which if we act, I'm telling you, all you need is to convince people. All you need is to say, okay, it has happened in Anambra, it has happened in all those states. Then people will vote. As I told you last time, during my own, after my own election, where I voted, I went online and I saw my result exactly. It was not tampered with. My own place was not tampered with. It was exactly like that. But for the fact that it was not used, it was the one they mutilated at the polling, at the local government headquarters and the rest that was finally used. That's why people began to shout. So if INEC will implement that one alone, I'm telling you, power will be taken from the political class to the masses. Because even APC, as strong as you think they are, they don't have the capacity to cover Nigeria. They can cover all polling units. In fact, a lot of agents will compromise. How much are they giving the agents? How much will they give them? Even if they give them $1 million up there, it will keep trickling down, reducing as it comes down. Before you reach them, you see, many of them will compromise and still allow election to go well. Even in Lagos, you don't have enough tout to go around. Yeah, forget what you see online. Enter the streets. How many are they? So if people believe that the election will be transmitted electronically, people will vote. I mean, that particular point alone, people will vote. And if there is a good representation of all political parties to the collation center, where it is extracted electronically and presented to the Nigerians, people will vote. Why wouldn't we vote? So that's by the way for that one. Then other points in the bill is forget about compulsory voting. I know there's one that they're mentioning say compulsory voting. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. There's also same day election across all offices. While it sounds cumbersome, I think it also makes sense to me personally, because I know others will definitely hold contrary opinions. We can actually hold it. It can actually happen. That you just vote, just to make it, let it be electronic. Let me go. It can even be a device where I have to just put my hand without necessarily having hard copy material. Just put my hand. This is it's swap. You see presidency, you vote. Swap. You see you are governor, you vote. You swap. You see this, you vote. They are there to swap it for you. That's all. And the election is digitally connected. People will come and vote. People will fool the in polling units and vote. The passion that was developed during the last general election in the southern Nigeria, I want to use southern Nigeria particularly, has not been known in the recent electoral journey. But it was because there was a promise that people were made to believe that election result is going to be transmitted digitally. And since it didn't happen, we know, look at where we are now.
These things are not difficult, if you ask me. I don't know why our government seems to be backward on this technology. I think it's time we invite a tech, person here to come and enlighten them on how easy these things can be. But then let's move to the next question. The issues of election, petition, tribunal, and the timeline for concluding appeals have also been contentious. It has been a contentious point. Do you support the proposed constitutional amendment to ensure all appeals are determined before elected officials are sworn in? And what would be the implication of such a change?
I support that one wholeheartedly. I know that those drugs doesn't make sense. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a geophysicist by training, but that does not mean I'm blind to something that can be seen. We dragged it for too long. In fact, it was being dragged longer than it is now. In those days, it would drag for, almost 2 years. Now it has been curtailed to short time. It can still be curtailed so that everything will be concluded before swearing in. In fact, one of the advantages is that will not face any distraction. You face his job immediately, he's sworn in. Not going to court while you're in office, wasting precious time. But for the fact that the person that is being sworn in, they use presidency, president has a case study here, is going to be the one in control of INEC. Is going to be the one in control of the independent, the dependent, now dependent judiciary. And there's no need for election for a petition. As it has gotten in Nigeria now, you can't remove the president through the courts. As long as it's entered, you can even fire everybody. You can change, just cut everywhere. Through threats, look at how the president Tinubu immediately entered. He was giving money, land, and the rest to judges and the rest. Why wouldn't they tow his part? Why wouldn't they do work according to his dictate? And as predicted, they did. So it's very good. I support it wholeheartedly. So that within short time we are done. Everybody know where he is instead of waiting and let it be that it's another person that is in the office. Why this is this handle? The way Nigeria problem is now, Nigeria is structured currently. It's now as if the president is the judge to his own case, because by the time the judiciary is in the spam, of course, we are not even going to a point. We'll leave it for lawyers to be talking about why judiciary appointments are still from the presidency. Of course, you know the effect of it. So I support it wholeheartedly. Let every case be determined before swearing in, especially those offices in which the winner is going to be in control of the agencies that determine who win the case or not. Agency or arm of government. Presidency in Nigeria, let's not deceive ourselves, is in total control of the judiciary. So when president become enter office while judiciary determine his case, we know it's an aberration.
Go to the next question. So beyond legal and technological reforms, what non-legislative measures can INEC undertake to actively rebuild public trust and transparency, especially in the lead up to 2027? If you were the INEC chairman right now, you get with all the zeal and zest, what would you do differently? Aside reassurance and all previous promises, what would you do differently this time around? Because the world is evolving, right?
Okay, is to ensure, as I have stressed in my previous comments, is to ensure that election results are transmitted electronically. I think that's the first one. Is to ensure that if I become INEC chairman now, that I'm not that I was not the one that conducted the first election, I will accept the blame. INEC failed Nigerians. I will accept it. Then I will reassure Nigeria. Of course, if there is limited power of INEC chairman, especially if you want to do something that's against, that requires, or you want to cause a change that requires legislation. But as we stand now, I know that INEC can transmit election result electronically. But what I don't know is whether INEC is capable of relying on electronics only to collect results. But INEC has the power to checkmate whatever is submitted on paper with whatever is on the digital form, on the digital platform. INEC has the power of that one. We all know. They only refuse to do it. We saw what happened in Abia State when they wanted to do abracadabra, and then Professor Oti rejected. In fact, I know Abia State people were even relying on electronic transmission. This electronic transmission, why I'm hammering on it is that it is what fits the generation. It is where we are. Everything is digitally controlled. I will believe what is digitally controlled now than what can be raised and changed by whatever. So if it is me, I will consolidate on that transmission. Just ensure people that whatever you vote, we don't even have security. We know that even at the polling unit.
So do you think the problem is only from INEC? Do you think political parties also play in this whole malfunction that happens during the INEC elections? Where is, aside the INEC problem, what other problems do we have? And this will be the last question, and then we'll round up.
INEC is the umpire. Political parties will have their own problem, but am I going to be blaming political parties who want to win elections by all means? It's like asking why you think the problem is from the candidate. INEC is why is umpire. They are the one that are to checkmate candidates, to rig election chambers, to worship God, is to win election. In fact, there's cases of Humphrey Nwosu. You don't want to tell me Jega at Airu Jega was not under pressure from PDP that day in 2015. So, for the fact that political parties will scheme, we do all manner of things to make sure they win election, INEC is still the umpire. INEC is still the one we will blame when there is issue, not the political parties. Because sometimes we may not be able to quantify the amount of havoc done by different political parties. Even those who are not in party, who are not in power, still do things to make sure they win. But who is supposed to checkmate them? INEC.
For your thoughts, your opinions, and they're all valid, right? I want to believe that if an INEC official is watching us right now, they have taken notes of all your suggestions. INEC, Nigerians are pleading, do the needful so we have a free and fair election come 2027.